Good evening. I'm going to make a little video. I'm going to tie a fly. Try to make one that looks like a Santa hat. So set up here. Alright, to accomplish my Santa hat, I'll be using, first of all, eagle claw hook. This is a bait holder. I depress the barbs on the back and on the hook point. Then I got white thread. It's kind of heavy thread, but it's fine. I have red yarn. I have red feathers. I have white marabou. And unfortunately, I have no idea whatever happened to my my white hackles. So I'm going to use these off-white hackles, kind of yellowy. I'll just make it look like a classic Santa hat, like it's been worn a few times. It'll be fine. Or I might be able to use that. I don't know. We'll see. Alright. So, let's start off. So this is going to be kind of like a woolly booger pattern. And I'm just using red and white for the Santa hat look. But I find with these very often the highly contrasting patterns really attract the fish. So we'll see how that goes. So you could make this with white and black, white and blue, white and green, whatever color you like, just to get the contrast. So I'll start off with my marabou. Real fluffy stuff here. I'm going to take, there's my marabou. I'm going to take some of this off, move it to the end. Take some of this off. All I'm doing is taking off the pieces from the shaft of the feather and moving them over so I can tie them in a clump to make a good tail. So make it about the length of the hook, and I can always come back and clip this off, which I might do. Okay, wrap this forward and help get some body on this fly a little bit. Sharp feather or sharp scissors are a good thing to have. Just gonna bring this forward. And to help keep it from turning. There we go. Now that right there could actually be a really good fly just by itself. So that can work out. But that's not what I'm doing today. Get a couple more turns so I have a good solid base under here. Okay. And get my red yarn. I'm just going to snip a little piece of this so I have a little less to work with. That's about all I need right there. Short, like 6 inches or so. Tie this guy in here. I'm actually going to make that the whole length so that I don't get a lumpy body. And then just so that I have kind of the Santa hat shape, I'm going to take one of these longer red feathers. Now these are not ideal for hackle, for wrapping the hook palm ring. I'll take a good long one here. I'm going to take off this side of the feather. All I'm doing is stripping off the barbs on one side. I'll go all the way up with that so I get as much of this usable portion as I can. There we go. And I'm just going to take this, flare it back a little bit. I just don't want to pull those feathers away. I'm just going to take this and tie it in right there. This might break off, and if it does, that's fine. This is just something I'm adding on to give it some more shape. I'm trying to get that Santa hat cone shape going a little bit. All right, so I'm not going to use any wire just because it's not that important, but I could put in wire here, and then after I get all this wrapped, follow it with wire and make it a little more strong. I'm just getting the colors. This is a simple enough fly that it's not really important to have it be that strong. It's a cheap fly. I mean, for a couple of bucks you can get a whole big spool of this yarn. So you can make, I just used 3 inches of that to make that fly. So, a chunk of marabou, just one little chunk, and then that piece of yarn. Okay, I'm going to use my hackle plier. This grabs the feather. Just gives you a little more control. I'm just going to wrap this forward. And make it in turns that don't touch. So there's a little bit of a gap between each one. A little bit of a segmented look. Just going to go around and around. I very often break these off. So I'm just trying to be careful to not put too much tension on it. Get to about right there. Actually, go back a turn. Go in here, about there. Tie that off there, because I want room to put in my white feather, or my kind of yellowed feather. So I got a couple of turns to hold that in place. Snip that off. That red feather is a real ugly feather, but it'll do the job. Once it's in the water and wet, it won't matter. All right, I'm going to take this. So this is, again, these feathers are a little bit yellow, so I'll take the lightest one one of the lighter ones I can find, so it'll still give it a white look. Otherwise, it'll just look like a really old Santa hat. I've got one that's old like that, and it's really yellowed. It's kind of gross, but whatever. So I'm just snipping this. I stripped the feathers back, or the barbs back off of that shaft. And then I'll come in and take a little bit more off of this. That off of one side. Just like I did the red one. And then off of this shaft, I'm going to take this extra length here. Off of there. I'm just going to go in here and bind that down with a couple of turns. I want to leave some room here to go forward, but I want to leave some room to make a head. Get my pliers, hackle pliers again. Just grab the end of this. And I'm just going to wrap it. I'm actually going to tie in 2 of those. I'll back that off. This feather is so thin, it's not showing up very well. So now I'm going to come in and get another one in there. That one. Oops. About right there. So I still have my hackle on the pliers. I'll wrap forward with this first one. Try not to break it off. Pull these barbs back so they don't get pressed down. Right about there. I'll tie that one off. 2 turns, 3 turns. Okay, and then I'll come in with my pliers again, grab the other one. And all you do is just go over it again, but try to move it back and forth so it doesn't get tangled up in there. It doesn't press down the other feathers barbs. You can get a little bit fuller look to it. Get a few turns there. Snap that off. Got these extra barbs sticking out here. Trim those up a little bit. Be careful not to cut my thread that I've got there already. Come up. I'm just going to wrap forward. Now this white thread is heavy enough that I've got a good sized head built up on here, but I could very easily have tied on a bead to help with the weight of this thing. But again, just for the fun of it, I'm trying to make something that looks a little bit like a Santa hat. So that's my color theme going there. And go ahead and tie this off. It's a whip finisher. Clear nail polish. Make this thing last a long time. You wouldn't think it, but this nail polish, man, I've got some old flies that I stopped using, and I took the flies and reused the hook, and I cut them up, and I had to really cut away at them to get them to free up that hook, to get the string off of it and the feathers and things, lead and everything. It's just because I painted it with that stuff. So I'm just going to use this. This is Velcro on a handle of a beard brush. I'm just using this to separate these feathers, these barbs, and then I think, so this is the way I typically like them, but I think I'm going to square this up to give it a little bit more of a poof at the top. So I'm going to hold this here. I don't like to cut them, but I do just break them off like that. And then gives it a nice clean edge to it when it swims. So anyway, so there is kind of a silly fly, the Santa hat. Although I'm thinking about something else here. So I've got a black marker handy. This desk is a wreck. Because what I'm thinking about is putting some eyes on this thing. Probably don't have one. This will probably work. This is blue, but I'll just go here. Put a dot on both sides. Cool. All right. There is my, for lack of a better term, Santa hat fly. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.